Him speaking next door. I thought it's only decent, so it could be standing.
No worries, man.
That's it. Clive's lap. Come sit on it in a minute.
Good evening, folks. This is Councillor Chrissy Morris. I am in a completely official capacity. Let's see exactly what happens, because I have requested to speak as a member of the public, and they're telling me that they're not going to let me. Now, I don't think they can stop me. I'll be speaking, whether they let me or not. I'll be speaking.
All right.
Something like that. Let's give you a quick look around the room. These are my fellow councillors. Some of them are very good people. This fella here, if he touches me below the waist, he's going to have to marry me.
Good evening, and good evening. Welcome to this.
She's a really good girl.
Council Planning Committee today, Thursday, the 2nd of December 2021. I am Councillor Mark Hurd, Chairman of this committee. Members, the meeting has been designed to mitigate for COVID. Therefore, in the interests of member and officer safety, all present should work to the protocols agreed on Council on the 2nd of September 2021. For the benefit of the members of the public watching and listening, Councillor Wendy Stamp recently resigned as leader of this council owing to personal circumstances. Councillor Stephen Nunn also resigned in support of her. I would like to place on record my gratitude to Councillor Stamp and Councillor Nunn, who have both been outstanding contributors to this council. Their departure is far too premature. Both carried enormous workloads and responsibilities. They embraced their roles and were committed to the district and its residents. Thank you to you both, who will of course continue as councillors representing their own wards and the council. Until the 16th of December, Councillor Richard Siddle is the leader designate, where his position can then be ratified by council and a deputy duly appointed. Could you please also note that we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you're giving your consent to being recorded. Please note that the live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of microphones. Therefore, when invited to speak, please remember to turn on your microphone and off when you've finished. Members and officers, if you wish to speak during each item, please put your hand up to indicate, and I will invite you at the appropriate time. Finally, I draw your attention to the notices on the agenda papers regarding the different levels within the chamber, and advise that the fire exit is the door behind this top table. I'll move on now to agenda item 2, which is apologies. Ms. Bird, do we have any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, apologies received from Councillor Bassinger, Councillor Boyce, Councillor Stilts, Councillor Swain and Councillor Stamp. And Councillor Stamp has asked that it be noted that she's had to attend the Light Up of Life Christmas service at St Mary's in Vernon, which is an annual service. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. That is noted. Agenda item 3. Oh, Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Chairman. I give apologies for Councillor Anne Hull. I know it's all, but she's not very well.
Point of order.
Councillor Morris, you are not on this committee.
Point of order. It states in the Constitution that any member can call a point of order. It doesn't say about a committee member.
What is it you want to say?
I would just like to point out that apologies need to be given before the meeting begins to the committee clerk. And what Councillor Channer has just done is not that. And she also didn't call a number, which is something that she was quite vociferous about. That I should have done at the last one that no one else does.
All right, thank you very much. So Councillor Hull's attendance is noted, or non-attendance is noted. Agenda item 3. Councillor White.
And if I might come in, Councillor Hull also notified me, but I've got no MDC equipment because I handed it in to try and get it fixed yesterday. So it was well in time, but I was unable to let anybody know prior.
Thank you.
Councillor Hull was obvious, Councillor White, so sorry, I thought Councillor White had forgotten to put her hand up.
Thank you. All right, okay. Agenda item number 3 are declarations of interest. Members are reminded that they are required to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interests, or non-pecuniary interests, which they know they might have in items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of Code of Conduct for members. They are reminded that they will need to repeat their declarations at the appropriate point in the meeting and leave the room if required under the Code of Conduct. Unforeseen interests must be declared similarly at the appropriate time.
I do believe that it is the procedure of this
Councillor
council.
Morris, please
I do
be
believe
quiet.
that it is the
Do I have any-
procedure of
do
this
I have
council
Councillor Morris,
to announce
I will
councillors
say
in
this
attendance.
only once.
You can say it as many times as you wish.
Prepared to have,
You
Councillor
are
Morris not
supposed
heard?
to announce.
Agreed.
You are
Councillor Morris,
supposed to
I have to
announce
tell you
councillors
that
in attendance.
section
You are
1
supposed
to 3,
to announce
Right.
councillors in attendance. You have not done that.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Well, that has been the procedure ever
Councillor
since
Morris,
I've been here.
Please be quiet.
No.
I wish to announce that I'm here in attendance.
In that case, if you continue with this misconduct by persistently disregarding the ruling of the chairman or behaving badly, irregularly or improperly, I will not only say that you will not be heard, which I've already done.
Sorry, can you
but
get that
I
out a
shall-
little bit clearer, please?
I will have you leave the meeting.
How will you have me leave the meeting?
Will you be quiet?
Will you take that I am in attendance and have it minuted?
No, I won't.
So are you saying that I'm not in attendance?
No, you're not a member.
I am a member.
You're not a member of the committee.
I am a member. I didn't say I was a member of the committee.
Councillor
I'm a
Morris,
member
if you
and I'm in
listen-
attendance.
If you listen to me, I will tell you something. If you wish to speak, it's in my gift to do that. I am prepared to do that as you are a member of Haybridge. Just wait a moment. As a member of Haybridge, as a district member for Haybridge, I will be prepared to listen to you for 2 minutes, but I will not have you interrupting this meeting.
Thank you. And I'm glad to see that you've changed your tune since last time when you refused to listen to anything. I'm in attendance and thank
Please
you.
be quiet.
I'll be quiet when I've finished
Councillor-
speaking.
You'll be quiet when I tell you.
Are you telling me?
I am telling you.
Then
Be
it's not
quiet.
working, is it, Mr. Hurd?
Councillor Fleming.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Fleming, your interest.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. A non-pecuniary as a member of Essex County Council who are statutory consultees. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Chairman. Also a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council who are statutory consultees in matters of highways and drainage, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other declarations, members? Thank you. Agenda item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. It is recommended that the minutes of the meetings of the District Planning Committee held on the 30th of September, found on pages 7 to 13, are approved as a true and accurate record. These are presented for accuracy only. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mays, thank you. Does any member wish to raise any matter of accuracy that they need to indicate that they need to speak? No. Can we agree those by assent? Agreed. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 5. This is found on pages 15 to 30 and pages 3 to 6 in your members' update. Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just a point of clarification. On the members' update that was sent out, they've actually listed the parish as Heybridge East when it is in actual fact Heybridge West.
Okay, that is duly noted. Thank you. So this application relates to land at Broad Street Green Road, Maypole Road and Langford Road, Heybridge. The proposal is to form a number of temporary access points for construction traffic on Maypole Road and Broad Street Green Road. Members, this presentation has been circulated and is available obviously on mod.gov. Mr. Johnson, can you please present this report? Oh, it's Anna, is it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So the application relates to the largest of the 3 sites allocated for development in North Heybridge Garden Suburb, referred to in policy S2 as the S2D site, which was granted planning consent for a hybrid residential development on appeal on the 25th of October 2019 under the terms of application 15/00419/OUT. However, it should be noted that this application relates only to these areas marked in red here that relate and not the wider allocated site. So the current application relates to the formation of 2 temporary access points for the construction traffic onto Maple Road, as you can see on this plan, and Broad Street Green here. Just to point out, on Maple Road is just to the south of the existing farm track, and on Broad Street Green is opposite units 71 to 77. And it would require the construction of a crossover between the existing carriageway and the boundaries of the site. These are plans of the proposed access points. And these are some more detailed plans in relation to how larger vehicles will access the site, refuse vehicles on Maple Road and Broad Street Green, and other larger vehicles. So the purpose of these temporary access points is to allow the construction traffic to build the Broad Street Green Road, the Maple Road and the Langford Road junctions. And the purpose of this plan, this plan does not form of the current application, but is one that was approved under the hybrid application, but this is only for reference to the junction points. It should be noted that the duration of both access points would be no longer than 2 years, and it is also expected that the latter part of this period, the construction access, would be less, and given that the relief road will be released and will be and all the traffic will be able to go through the relief road, which is along the northern part of the allocated site. So these are some photographs from Maple Road, north and south views, and these are some photographs of Broad Street Green. So the principle of providing a temporary vehicular access points to facilitate the timely delivery of an allocated site that benefits from planning permission is considered acceptable. The development would result in the loss of some existing vegetation. However, any such loss was previously taken into account by the inspector deciding the appeal of the original hybrid application and found that any unforeseen damage to the trees would be able to be mitigated by suitable conditions. Furthermore, no objection was raised by the tree consultant. Taking into account that the temporary and localized nature of the development, it is considered that the impact on the visual amenity and the character of the area would not be materially harmful. The Highway Authority was consulted as part of this application and subject to condition raises no objection, and there was no harm to the highway safety or the local highway network. No objection is raised in terms of the impact of the development on the amenity of the neighbouring occupiers, subject to appropriate conditions. For that reason, officers recommend approval of the application, subject to conditions 1 to 7 on pages 29 and 30 of the agenda, and the revised condition 8 on page 4 of the members' update. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have 2 notified public participants for this application in line with the public participation scheme. I'm going to invite Mr. Coleman from Phase 2 Planning and Development to read out their submission. Mr. Coleman, I'd like to come forward to this microphone here. May I remind you that you are allocated 2 minutes only for public speaking in accordance with the scheme.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As members will be aware, North Heybridge, sorry. Sorry, I'll carry on. North Heybridge Garden Suburb, key part of the local plan, and the new relief road is a vital part of the infrastructure that we need to build as part of the development. The first step we need to take in building the relief road is to build the junctions. But in order to build the junctions, we need somewhere for our construction traffic to get access, hence why we're applying for a temporary access. The first 2 relief road junctions to be built are the Maple Road Staggered Junction and Broad Street Green Road roundabout. To construct these, we therefore need the 2 temporary points of construction access that we're applying for. Once these new junctions are constructed, then the temporary construction points can be closed and we'll switch to using the new relief road junctions. And from there we can start to construct the Langford Road junction, which in turn opens up that route for construction traffic. All of this we set out in the briefing note that was recently circulated, and all of it is in accordance with what we said at the outline application stage. We expect to use the 2 temporary access points for around 12 months. We've applied for up to 12 years as the maximum, but we're happy to accept a condition requiring their closure as soon as the new junctions become operational. It's worth pointing out, I think, and without wishing to state the obvious, that the main purpose of having a construction access is to get our construction traffic off the public highway and onto the site, which is good for the developer, but it's good for everybody because it gets our construction traffic off the highway and out of people's way. So that's why we're hoping that the committee will support our application tonight and approve consent for our temporary accesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll now invite Mr. David Sisby, an objector, to read out their submission. Once again, Mr. Sisby, again, as I'm sure you know, you're allocated just 2 minutes for public speaking in accordance with the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. First of all, I wanted to point out some procedural irregularities with this application. The report before members suggests that the site is a very large site, and actually the whole of the Heybridge Garden Suburb site. But in fact, when you read the application properly, you see that actually it relates to 2 very small sites, and those are the red line sites. But there isn't actually a site plan which is properly red-lined as part of the application. And so I do think the committee needs to very carefully consider whether or not this application should have even been validated, because if it is approved this evening, then I think there's a very serious risk of a successful judicial review, because it relates to 2 different sites that aren't properly redlined. There is no site plan, they're redlined on a location plan, not on a separate site plan within the information that's on the council's website. My main opposition to this particular application, though, is that originally the application sought to have the relief road built as a haul road right from the Langford Road roundabout, or the new roundabout they propose to put in this Langford, right through to the Broad Street Green roundabout. This is a big change to that, because what it's proposing is only to do the work on the eastern part of the site, first of all, and not on the western part of the site. And what that means is there's going to be a very significant change in the direction of traffic over that period of time. And the Hall Road will therefore not be fully available to be used by construction traffic from the early part of the work, because they're not putting in the Langford Road roundabout, which needs to be put in quite early. So that's the main reason why I'm opposed to this. It's also wrong in the report to suggest that actually the inspector approved the removal of these trees. He was very specific that the removal of trees related to only the original part of the application, which was it was a hybrid, if you remember, and only that part of the application which was full, and this wasn't. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. At this stage, as I'm sure members know, because of the public participation scheme, notification should be given. However, I am going to use under Rule 19, I can use my discretion to hear another submission. I will do this for you, Councillor Morris, because you are a district councillor for that area. But I must ask you to have your 2 minutes and keep to the point on the agenda.
Can I just confirm, Mr. Chairman, that this is a public 2 minutes, or am I as a councillor?
You are here as a councillor.
I wish to be considered to be here as a member of the public. That is what I asked for. That's what I requested yesterday.
No, I'm afraid you cannot.
Well, I'll have my say anyway then. Yet again, nature is taking the brunt of this. We're chopping down trees and vandalising Mother Nature. It was only a few years ago that Heybridge was promised a flood alleviation scheme that hasn't materialised, and I believe 8 million quid was put away for that. I'd like to know where that money has gone. I'd remind this chamber that in 8 years, if you believe the science, Heybridge is going to be underwater anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm now going to open this to debate and invite you to put any questions or make any comments that you have. I know that I saw Councillor Durham had his hand up, and I'll just go around. I'll go to Councillor Edwards first, if I may, because he is the ward member.
Thank you, Chairman. Also, I called this in.
First of all, I'd just like to say that one of the reasons I called this in was because this was originally planned for delegation to officers, and this is part of the Northern Heybridge Garden Suburb, this development, West Cone, and therefore is a strategic site, not an application, an old application. It's part of our local development plan, and as such should be treated as a strategic site. And to back this up, we received a members' update yesterday, and I'll read it. It should be noted that while a member has called this application into committee, this application directly relates to one of the garden suburbs, S2D, included in policy S2 of the local development plan, and therefore defaults to members' decision at district planning committee. So that's backed up one of the reasons I called it in. And I would like to ask that future reserve matter applications, which are a number of them, will also come to this committee and not be delegated or to area committees.
Mr. Johnson, can you respond to that? Thank you.
Yes, I would confirm that the reserve matter applications would come to this committee.
Thank you. In regards to the reasons, some of the reasons which has already been mentioned, policies N1 and N2, which is the green infrastructure and the natural environment, I think some of the questions have been answered, but there are a number of trees that are being cut down which were not originally in the plan because they were part of the relief road, not access roads. In addition, condition 7, I'll just get my papers correct, in condition 7 of the original application, which was approved, a traffic management plan was to detail vehicle access arrangements, permanent or temporary, divisions and road closures, but I haven't seen a road traffic plan covering these 2 items. So that's my first question. I have a number of questions, I'm sorry.
Are you able to take that, Mr Johnson?
Yeah, through the chairman. So the construction traffic management plan is being approved through a discharge of condition application, and this is I can give you reference numbers because this was stated in the members update. This is application reference 21/05134/DT, which was determined after the submission of this application that we are currently assessing, but it did include a traffic management plan taking access from these access points.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, because this is a discharge of condition application, these do not come to.
So we won't see the management plan, traffic management plan.
Yes, this is discharge of condition application, approval of details applications are not determined at committee. It's just details that we consider.
Well, then leading on to my second question, which I think the member of the public has already mentioned, is the fact that the road from Maypole Road to Langford is not going to be completed. Rather, the access road, the traffic from the access road construction is coming down Maypole Road into Holloway Road, round small roundabout before it hits 414. So that traffic will be coming down that road and not along, I think it's called the In-Hall Road. So the traffic for the construction of the access points on Maypole Road will come down Holloway Road, Maypole Road, if you get the plan up. It will come down Maypole Road and hit Holloway Road at the small roundabout. So you're going to have heavy duty lorries turning in a very small area on a roundabout that's painted on the ground before hitting the main roundabout to the 414, is that correct? Is that where the traffic will be coming down?
Yes, through you, Chairman, this is the access. So in this plan, the proposed temporary access onto Maple Road is here. So yes, this is how it's going to be taken. But even if the construction access was taken from this junction, which is proposed to be constructed, and then all the traffic will be taken from here, it would still have to use use Maple Road because this is the only access to the site. So either the temporary access that is proposed or the junction would have to use the same road.
But if I may ask, if the access road at Langford Road was done first, then that stretch from Langford Road to Maple Road could be used as the in-hall.
Through you, Chairman, the purpose of this access, temporary access, is for them to be able to build these junctions, and then all the traffic will be taken from those. So technically, if this will result in the less disruption, if you can say that, to both the construction of the site but also the users of the roads, because if, let's say, these junctions were about to be constructed first, then all lorries carrying materials and all the rest would have to load up on a road waiting for the junction to be built. So
my concern is that the amount of lorries coming down Maypole Road from the access point round Holloway Road, that's my concern. Okay, Chairman, if I may. No, sorry, I think I'll give way. Thank you.
Councillor Durham.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, the former councillor Sis Mead has raised some good technical points, which I'm sure will be addressed by the officers. I just want to address a practical point. I mean, this development has been approved, whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. I think from a practical point of view, my concern, if this meeting approves the application, I'm very concerned about the condition of the existing roads, and so I would really like to see very stringent wheel wash facilities to be provided, and that to be very strictly enforced, because coming to the time of year that we are, and through next winter, the potential will be to cause absolute havoc on those roads. And I just would like to clarify a point with the officer. If these two temporary entrances are not approved, could she just point out exactly where the construction traffic will enter and exit the construction site, please?
Yes, through you, Chairman. So, if I start from the first question, sorry, apologies. I'll start from the last one. So, if these construction points on Maple Road and on Broad Street Green will not be constructed, then the applicant will have to start building this junction in order to be able to access the site, and also this junction, again, through Maple Road, in order to be able to access the site. These are the two access points that they will have to start with if these two temporary access points are not going to be built. In relation to the technical point raised by Mr. Stesney, just to point out that there are, you've made reference to it, there are two plans. This one that shows the red line around the Broad Street Green temporary access point, and also this plan that shows the in red line the access point onto Maple Road, and the rest of the site is lined in blue, which shows the ownership. So there are two plans that show the location sites.
Wheel wash.
Oh yes, again, this was considered under the discharge of condition application, condition 7, under the reference number I referred to earlier. So this condition included a number of criteria, which they are going to be discharged for each phase separately. So the application that I referred to earlier, the discharge of condition application, does include all the information, including wheel washing facilities and everything, for traffic construction being taken from these two temporary access points, and we consider them, and they have to comply with them.
Thank you.
And also, sorry, if I may, just to confirm, condition 8, the revised condition 8 on this members' update requires them to comply with the details submitted under this condition. So this is on, again, this is on page 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Channon.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Dunn actually has raised what I raised, and I'm going to ask a question in regard to what I'll use the description Councillor Dunn did, or my Councillor Sisby did. And I just want categorically stated that what Mr. Sisby said, and I know you explained it, is that there is no risk to the authority at all regarding the red line plan. So I'd like that to be completed, because I think that's an important element. We don't have a whole debate. I think that there is some gravity with what Mr. Sisby has said. And also, what I'd like to ask is, regarding the conditions placed, and I know what highways have to say, regarding informative number 2, I was just thinking, should that not have in some way formed a basis of a condition in its own right, or should it not be combined with perhaps one of the conditions regarding highways? Because I found it quite interesting that there's to be some agreement with highways details to be agreed before the commencement of works. So I was surprised that informative number 2, or nothing more than just that, an informative, and did actually constitute a more robust condition, either added on to one that might have been placed regarding highways, or, as I said earlier, should have been perhaps one in its own right. I would like to appreciate some explanation behind that because I was a little surprised by that, but that might be my interpretation of how it's worded, and perhaps I'm mistaken or incorrect in thinking it should have formed a condition. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chairman, again. In relation to the first point, yes, I can confirm that these are allocation plans that clearly show where the red line around the 2 access points are, and I don't think there is any possibility of any judicial review against it, because they clearly show what is a legislation requirement is a red line showing the showing anything that is in relation to the development proposed. And these 2 plans, this one here and that one, do show a red line around the application site, and within blue line the land that is under the applicant's ownership. So I think that's good.
Just to add a little clarity, I think in most cases, we're used to seeing a red line around a single site. But that's not necessarily the case, because this is such a large strategic site. There are various elements which are discrete, but they form the application. And as Ms. Tassoglou says, it doesn't meet the legal requirement, and therefore there is no risk to the council in that respect.
And yeah, if I can cover the second point, the conditions requested by highways, including like visibility displays and also the size of the access and the plans, them being constructed in accordance with the plans, which is condition 3 requirement and condition 3, are sufficient for the application. And I mean, in planning terms, are sufficient to consider the application, and they are to the satisfaction of the highway authority. This informative is a very, like, I'd say, standard informative used by the highway authority when there is going to be formation of a vehicle access onto the highway, so they need to be in some kind of agreement between the highway authority and the developer. So it's not an unusual informative being requested by the highway authority.
Just to add to that, the applicant is under a legal arrangement with the highways authority through a 278 agreement on all matters to do with highway works, which will cover in terms of the required standard.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fluker.
I'll do it again. I didn't catch it.
Just some sort of clarification. The first one, Chairman, is the point that Councillor Darling and Councillor Channer raised with regards to wheel washing and conditions. This planning authority has fallen foul in the past of what we call construction management plans, whereby a lot of this information is actually put in there, and we find it absolutely impossible after the event to try and get these implemented. Now, I would feel a lot more happier if the planning authority this evening actually put something in there to say that the wheel washing should be provided, and also the road 400 metres either side of these junctions are kept clear of debris. It's all very well having lorries coming out with clean tyres. If the road is wet and lorries are going in with dirty tyres, we've seen what's happened at other sites, and it really is bad for residents. And when residents look at that, they won't be looking at the local highways authority, they'll be looking at this authority. So I understand what Ms. Tassoglou has said, but I think we need something far more robust than them coming back with their own ideas. This council needs to approve it. And Chairman, I understand what members are saying about access points, and you know, they clearly have more information than I do in relation to local areas because they are local members. But it would be very difficult for the planning authority to object because we're not the highways authority. And when you read paragraph 5.4, I think it is, it says in there quite clearly that Essex Highways don't have any objections to this. So, Chairman, it is very, very difficult. But I said, so far this evening, Chairman, I've not heard anything that, in my mind, speaks against the officer's recommendation to approve this. And that said, Chairman, I would propose that the planning authority approves this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to confirm, Mr. Johnson, that's something that can be added to.
Yes, I do understand because there are significant numbers, I think I said previously, of discharge of conditions, reserve patterns, phasing, that form the whole of this development, and I do appreciate it can be confusing. There will be duplication, but again, legally, there's nothing wrong with adding that condition to this application. I'm sure that the applicant will have any issues with that because it's really just duplicating one that they already have to comply with.
Okay, members happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go now to Councillor Nunn.
Thank you, Chair. Three brief points. Firstly, I noticed there's been an awful lot of tree felling going on along Maypole Road recently. Can I be assured that that felling is in line with the previously approved planning application and none of it is premature to this application? That's the first point. The second point is that I hear what Councillor Fluker says, and I've looked at the document here under 5.4, but we're looking at two of the fastest roads, regardless of the speed limits, two of the fastest roads and straightest roads in our area, Maypole Road and Broad Street Green. Are we absolutely sure that the mitigation that's being put forward is sufficient given the dangerous nature of those roads? And my third and final point is that if the roads are constructed, I don't understand the nature of temporary roads and the depth, but this is a very sensitive area historically and archaeologically, that I can see no reference in the document to archaeology. There's reference to the close proximity to listed buildings, but I can't see anything on archaeology, and I wonder why there's no archaeological condition. So they're the 3 points. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
If I cover them back to front, so in terms of archaeology, again, this application relates only to these two small areas. They are the access points, not the whole site. There are conditions, archaeology conditions imposed to the hybrid application, and the applicant is required to comply with them. But there isn't any evidence of like archaeological findings in these small areas that this application relates to. In relation to the trees, so yeah, I shall say that again, the trees that are proposed to be felled and the hedgerows under this application, first of all, the tree consultant has raised no objection to the fell of the trees, and there are two conditions so that the works of the trees are carried out in accordance with the requirements set out within their agricultural report. And also there is a condition to protect, that's condition 6, and also there is a condition in relation to the trees to be retained so that any works are done under the British standards. Also, I should just highlight again that all the trees and hedgerows that are proposed to be felled under this application, they are consented under the hybrid application. So no further trees from those that the inspector considered as part of the hybrid application are going to be felled under this application.
I think the third point was the fast roads, dangerous roads.
So just on the tree application, just to be quite clear, condition 18 of the hybrid application by the inspector specifically relates to tree protection and identifies a hatched area for trees to be protected, stroke where trees can be removed, and these access points do fall within that area.
Yes, through Chairman again, I do have two plans, they show, so whatever you can see in red here, these do have consent under the outline application to be removed. This is the access point on, this is the Broad Street Green one. So as you can see, there isn't anything further than what already consented to be removed, that is going to be removed. And this is the plan, sorry, this is on Maple Road. So these three, T19 and the hedgerow, T95 and hedgerow 19, whatever is in red again, does have consent under the outline application to be removed. So in terms of the speed on the roads, given that the Highway Authority is the authority to, they are the experts to advise us on whether an access point is satisfactory in terms of its impact onto highway network and highway safety. So, I mean, from our point of view, given that they are satisfied, there isn't anything further to be added in that respect.
But I think, just to sort of underline that, the highway authorities, it is their legal remit rather than, or more so even than just their expertise. And that just needs to be made quite clear. You know, we do not have jurisdictions over the public highways. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just felt it was a point that needed to be made because the residents have been making it. My question about the trees was, have any of them been removed prematurely to this application? That was my question, not the previous application and the previous trees. And I also find it quite surprising that the main site can have an archaeological condition, but the access areas can't.
Again, through you, Chairman, the access points are part of the wider application site, so the archaeological condition does cover this area as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to Councillor Durham again for a supplementary bit.
Yes, it's on this subject, Councillor Nunn, on the speed of the road. I'm assuming, or it's more than an assumption, that there will be adequate signage along these routes warning of the site entrance and exit. And in actual fact, I think it's likely to slow traffic down on this particular, on these roads during the construction period. And I just want to go back on something Councillor Flinker said, to expand it a little bit, and my previous point about a wheel wash. Wheel wash is certainly adequate during the winter months when it's mud, but when it's extremely dry, there is dust and gravel put on the road, and I would like to see some sort of agreement with the contractor that the road is swept routinely. You know, with a road sweeper, it takes less than an hour to go up and down those roads because the dust is just as dangerous as the mud in the winter. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, you can add it to the that serves the condition. Thank you. Councillor Siddle is next.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is, we were talking about the access road, and the officer said that if this access road or these two access points don't get built, then it's going to go in through a different route. And in terms of the implications of that, would that be just as big an issue as this particular access point, or would it be simpler or more complicated? And also, if you don't do these access points, does it delay at all the development of this land? And obviously that again might affect land supply. So yeah, in terms of not approving this, what are the consequences? If we went down that other route, is it slower, faster? So, you know, just so that we know the background if we don't do this particular application.
Chairman. So yes, there are implications because the formation of this access point is to enable the construction of the junctions and therefore the first phase of the development. If in terms of the impact, as I said earlier, the impact I mean, this is the most effective way for the construction of the whole site, but also in terms of the impact onto the users of the highway. Let me just go back to the so effectively, if you will have, if the developer will have to build this junction and this junction here, whilst also, I mean, there will be materials that they will have to be delivered on the site. So if there is equipment constructing the access point, whilst there are vehicles that they need to access the site to deliver the materials, then that would make further delays, because as I said earlier, there will be more vehicles stacking up on the road, waiting for the road to be built in order to allow access to, for example, as I said, store the materials on the site. So yes, I would say I think it will be a lot less optimal as an option if they have to go that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I suppose just to, if I can sort of illustrate it this way, the junctions are offline, they're sort of off grid. The junctions are not by the highway, yeah, they are within the site. So I suppose the question to ask is, how do you get to that point to be able to build it? You have to come off the road. I suppose, you know, when this is how I try to understand it, when the application is considered in its entirety, these are the sort of minutiae you may not consider in the first instance. You know, it's not like creating a junction on an existing road in that sort of sense. They're sort of offline. They need to get to it. They need to get to it in a way which is reasonable, practical, meaningful, and will cause less disruption. If there are not these accesses, then you can imagine the problems that there will be to then be able to come off grid, to then be able to create the junctions, because they are currently within the field, put it that way, yeah? And the implications in terms of the time, cost, these are all implications of what impact on the time of delivery of the development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bell is next.
I'm going to give way to Councillor Beale, who's been waiting to speak for some time.
Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. I was disappearing then as one of the board members. Right, basically, what's worrying me about this application is when Miriam Lewis was leader, I know that she asked for one of the conditions be that not one brick be laid before the bypass was done. So if that had actually come to fruition, we wouldn't be even considering this. We were supposed to have a flood alleviation scheme. That's
There you go.
And
Where's the money
all
gone for
these
it?
trees and bushes that are coming down, half of them wouldn't have had to come down because you would have had it in the original planning application for the bypass. Countryside are talking about working on 2 of the main roads out of 3 into Heybridge from that side. I suppose, I don't know what you want to call it, north, whatever. But you've got Broad Street Green, you've got Maypole, and you've got Langford. All you're going to have is Langford. Normally, if Broad Street Green's closed, you go up Maypole. But you're cutting that out because you're going to be working on both of them. So I'm in this order. How are they supposed to? So I'm on my soapbox now. How are they actually supposed to actually bypass either Broad Street Green or Maypole? Because you can't. You're going to have to go all the way through Heybridge to get out through Langford, to go all the way back round Woodham, what is it, Wickham Bishops, to come back on yourself. And with the price of fuel, I ain't looking forward to that. But it just worries me that we were told the bypass was going to be built first before single brick was laid. Well, that hasn't happened because Persimmons have built their 90 odd houses. At the end of the day, you wouldn't need all of these tracks to build houses if you had the bypass, because you'd be coming off of what would initially be your spine roads and everything. What's annoying me is say, and Michael, I'm sorry, I can't remember your surname, Michael. And Mr. Johnson. Basically, he's actually said that it's so complicated and it's confusing. And that is what they do. They blind you with
Yep.
all of these different things coming at you from all ways, and you're supposed to make head or tail of it. They can't give you a plan to discuss what we're talking about. There's no need for them tracks whatsoever if the bypass was built. And the excuse they'll give you is, we need to get some money back from the houses before we build a bypass. But that is, I mean,
I understand where you're coming
just
from.
one more thing.
Yeah, I just, it's just
Certainly
that
don't want traffic.
you're making a
and
statement, but what is the question to the officer?
To Green Railway Station. Basically, the other thing that I'm worried about is I do not, or would not like to see any of that construction traffic go through Haybridge Village. It needs to be
Yep.
from the Tottenham end. Because, you know, if the A12 has a problem, it's round. The road's bad enough as it is.
There's about to be war.
Yeah.
Not my ward.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm never happy when trees and hedgerows are being removed, particularly
Well said,
we
Vanessa.
now know that hedgerows actually capture more carbon even than trees do. So I'm not happy about this, but if this application does get approved, I mean, I would imagine they'll want to crack on with it, but can we have a condition, please, that no works involving any vegetation take place during bird nesting season?
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said, mate.
Through you, Chairman. Again, this all goes back to the original permission. These trees, I mean, the original permission was supported by environmental statement, including an ecological appraisal, where all of these things were determined at the time. This application does not propose us to do anything further, any kind of further trees from the original application. So whatever applied to the original outline application in terms of like any restrictions for protection of ecological assets and protected species will have to apply to this one.
Okay, there is no
Sorry,
objection.
thank you. Through the chair, can I just clarify that there are those conditions? Do we know? Through the chair.
Yeah, if I just wanted to read a part of condition 18 of the hybrid application. And it says, no trees or hedgerows within the site shall be felled, cut back, damaged or removed unless otherwise first agreed in writing by the local planning authority, other than those listed at table 5 at appendix 6 of the arboricultural impact assessment dated 23rd of April 2015, and which fall within the area for the construction of the relief road as hatched red in the tree protection plans at appendix 5 to that document. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, through the chair again, that still doesn't answer my question about nesting season and whether that condition is in place. Sorry to bang on, but it was really important.
Yes, through you, Chairman. Let me just bring the so it's all clear to everyone. The appeal decision. Its condition 15, if I remember correct, but bear with me 1 second. Yes, so condition 13 of the original permission requires that before the before or concurrently with the submission of the first of the reserve mass application within any of the phase of the development and ecological conservation management plan for this phase shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. There are a few requirements that they need to meet. To discharge this condition for phase 1, for phase 1, this condition has already been discharged. Phase 1 does include this area, so it will include everything that relates to the access onto Maple Road. The ecological conservation management plan for phase 2, which includes the access onto Broad Street Green, needs to be submitted and will have to be determined, and the details will have to be discussed. The ecological conservation management plan will have to include details such as when the works shall take place, and that should be outside birds nesting period and all of that. So this is all covered under, again, the hybrid application.
Thank you very
Sorry,
much.
I suppose if I just add again, just could it be useful just to read further down on that condition that Anna was mentioning? I'll try and walk through it as quickly as possible. Details of measures to ensure protection and suitable mitigation to all legally protected species and those habitats and species identified as being of importance to biodiversity, both during construction and post-development, including consideration and avoidance of sensitive stages of species life cycles, such as the bird breeding season. Protective fencing and phasing of works to ensure the provision of advanced habitat areas and to minimize disturbance of existing features.
Okay, I think that answers it.
I think it does, thank you.
I'll come back to you, well, I'll go to you next, Councillor Hill.
Right, I'd like an answer to whether we can add that condition that no traffic goes through the village. Can that be done? Also, I forgot to mention, I did say about the, what was it, the addition, what's that thing we had? The update or whatever, I said that was in Heybridge West, not East. It's the same with this, it's still in West, not East.
Yeah.
Although it says it's in East.
I'm not sure we can make that kind of condition, no.
It does not fall within the
Okay.
Right, the other thing is, how many houses have got to be built before we have a bypass?
Never happened.
I'm sure they've told us.
Through you, Chairman, again, the purpose of these access points is to construct the relief roads. Once these relief roads, actually, not the whole of them, so these two access points are going to enable the construction of the relief road, this junction, and this junction, and once this has been built, all the construction access will be taken from those roads. There will be no houses being built before these junctions are constructed.
Can you please show me on that map where the actual bypass will be? As opposed to this spine road or whatever you want to call it?
You mean the relief road, right?
Yeah, the relief road.
So the relief road is on here. That one here. And the access points are here and there, and they are to construct the main junctions of the relief road.
Right, I'm gonna move on now. Thank you, to Councillor Hagan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of small points of question and comment. This application, these are amendments to the original, so there's nothing put in there at all for the access points to the site.
No, this is a new application just for the access point. It's not an amendment to the original hybrid application.
Thank you. And as Councillor Fluke has so elegantly placed earlier on, I think some of the things that he said was spot on, definitely to be taken to the chair and debated by this committee. I think,
Good, where is he?
they're all very important. But my comment is, I've never liked these monstrous estates. That would be on record, but that doesn't determine the fact that I can't comment on the applications that are before us without any determination. But I find it very hypocritical that we talk about ripping out trees and we talk about greening and saving our green spaces when poor old Heybridge is going the same way as poor old Morgan.
Well said, mate.
But I'd like to see more planting, more green, more wildlife, because we've conditioned the hell out of this thing, but I still don't think there'll be enough to put in there to mitigate the destruction that these things cause.
All right, thank you. I've got Councillor Fluke and then Civil, but I'm going to go to Councillor White first, but she hasn't yet spoken.
Do that again.
You don't speak.
Do that again.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right, just briefly, I'm really strong on the back to trees again. On 5.2.5 of page 21, it says the trees were only removed to facilitate the development. Well, I'd like to see where the boundary between the development sites and both Maypole Road and Broad Street Green are. Because I was pretty shocked when I drove down Maypole Road the other day because all the trees had been grubbed out and they were big, big trees. Now, and on one of the earlier slides that you had, it showed trees along along Maypole Road with green circles. So presumably they were never deigned to be pulled out, and yet they are not there anymore. Because I think they're nearly all gone. So my first one is, where is the boundary of the site? Because surely the only way they should have been facilitated was if the trees that were removed on the original hybrid permission were within the site boundary. So does the site boundary include Maypole Road and Broad Street Green Road for starters? Secondly, if it doesn't actually include the highway, because I'm not aware that the highway is owned by the landowners who sold the land, what is the difference between the actual highway side and the application site? Because it seems to be very fishy that these trees have gone. Bearing in mind the authority deigned my orchard, which we planted, which were about 3 feet tall, deigned very few when these great big trees were removed, supposedly to facilitate development, and yet they're not in. If they're in development site, they're only just there, and I don't see why they had to be removed for facilitation, unless the highway itself is included in the application site.
I'll tell you about this later.
And the second one is on 3.1.2.7.
But she makes some good points.
Go on again about highways. It mentions footpaths, but our plan for all the big sites says there were going to be bridleways, and every time they say, no, sorry, you didn't do it soon enough. We do it every single time. We raise it every single time, and every single time there's a good reason why it can't be done. Like the relief roads and everything else. They always say, oh, you should have done that first. But then when we get these applications and the developers say, oh, no, we'll do that last. And then, oh, whoops, it got missed off. So can we, if we're changing conditions for different parts and potentially putting in wool washes, I know that's to do with these access points, can we not add other bits and pieces in when we want to, as the developers do for us?
Got some good points.
Side boundaries first. So where you see the blue line here, this is the boundary of the application site onto Maple Road.
So it doesn't include Maple Road?
It does partially, yes. So, but the trees are, just outside the highway.
Maple Road itself is at the interface of Maple.
Yeah. So
Maple Road is a public highway.
Well, that site there looks like it's including Maple Road. So does it or doesn't it?
No, whatever is highway, it's under the highway, permit, it's a highway, it's not owned by, it's not, exactly, it's not private land. So if I go down here to this plan, yes, so the tree, if you're referring onto the tree onto Maple Road, so this big red hatched area, this shows the tree that has approval to be removed, has consent to be removed. This is within the application site.
Yeah.
Again, hedgerow, page 19 here is also within the application site. This is the highway here. If we go to Broad Street Green, again, all the trees are within the application site. This is where the highway is. The trees are within the site. The green ones are to be retained because you.
Great. Just to add to that, unfortunately, I'm not sure if that's the case. This is just a snippet of a larger hatched area. I'm not sure if Anna has it on the presentation. I have it on my laptop. I'm looking at it. It's a much. The red area is just the access, but that is within a much larger area which is hatched, which has been identified at the highway application stage. It's also, endorsed through condition 18, which was mentioned earlier. I can't really sort of lift up my laptop and show you, but there is that plan.
Is this the substantive?
Yes, it is. Okay. Thank you. If previous slide, you'll see the road is in white, then you've got the boundary in red, I don't know if it's north or south of the access road, and then there's a whole row of green trees, well, they're not there anymore. If you go right to the top of the picture there, if you look between the red and then the road, there's a strip there that's meant on the left-hand side, between the red and blue line and the highway, which is white, you'll see there's an area that's green that looks to me like it should have trees on it. And I think you'll find all the ones along the road there are all gone, they're not there anymore. And that is a gap, that's what I wanted to know, that is the gap of the verge. And that's what I'm curious, because they're all gone, there's nothing.
Yeah. Well, I think is that something for
Enforcement.
All right, okay, that's fine. Councillor Fluke.
Give us a wave.
I'll try not to gesticulate too much because it's obviously been noticed this evening, and I believe on other times as well. Chairman, I know you'll be calling for the wording for this proposal, and before we get wrapped up in construction management plan, I still think that we should put a condition in, and I think it should be something quite simple, rather than us getting embroiled in wheel washes and spray downs and everything else. I'm sure Councillor Durham will agree. A simple condition that says that the developer has to keep the highway clear for 150 metres either side of the junction of all dust, debris and detritus. I think would serve the local community well, and this is what this planning authority should be doing. And as far as Councillor Miss Beale's comments about the relief road, yeah, it has to be, it can't be forward funded, it has to be back funded and paid for by the developer. But just to really put the members in their comfort zone, in Southminster, the Blackwater Ridge development, the last house was sold and occupied about 18 months ago, and the Leaf Road's still not open. But rest assured, I am speaking to Essex County Council, who are haven't really responded, but I'm dealing with their land planning authority. So, Chairman, going back to that, my proposal that we would keep it that simple, and I hope that's something that the officers can agree to. And I have made a proposal, Chairman, in relation to the recommendation. Thank you.
Is that proposal second? The members agree that we would include this as a condition. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Siddle. Right. Councillor Wheeler, I'll go back to you once more.
Sorry, Chairman, this is another bit one. Councillor White, basically, she hasn't had an answer to the bridleways.
Bridleways, yes.
I haven't had an answer about traffic not going through the village. It's all well and good us bringing all these comments up. It would be nice to get some sort of answer coming out.
Well, I think we did have an answer about the village, vehicles through the village, and I don't think that that's possible at the moment. No, right, okay, so that's that one. Brian,
So Haybridge is just going to be rammed with construction traffic, isn't it?
I think what we're trying to do is to get the access points made to get the traffic off the road. Yeah.
Again, through Chairman, any such condition would go back to the original application. It would be unreasonable to ask for a condition for a bridle way when the application site is just an access point. So any such condition would not meet the 6 tests for planning conditions.
Right, okay, so I just want to be clear, the proposal is that that the developer must keep the highway clear of dust and mud for 150 metres either side of the junction. That's just for the benefit of the public. Yes, that's good. You're happy with that? Yeah. Right, okay. Any other questions, members? I'd like to move on. Yeah. Right, okay, so the proposal is that we accept this application. Is that seconded?
Helms seconded.
Yes, and seconded.
Oh, darn.
Right, Councillor Helm. Those in favour, please show. Thank you. And those against? That is carried then in that case.
The developer wins.
Subject to that, those conditions. Yeah, okay, thank you, thank you very much. So, we will just wait a moment while we change over. We'll be
The
moving
developer
over
wins
next to
again.
agenda item
Money
6.
talks.
This is 21008889.
This is a more than one.
Res, that's land south of Wick Hill and Linebrook Way, which is in Western Malton. This is found, members, on your pages 31 to 60 and in your supplementary pack. So we'll just be waiting for Miss Matthews.
Chairman, may I briefly pop out for a comfort break? Is it less than a minute, half an hour?
That's okay. That's fine.
Toilet, in other words.
Yeah, I think members, what we'll do is we'll just adjourn for 5 minutes to allow Ms Matthews time to set up.
So guys, yeah, the developer wins. They get their access road, the trees get knocked down, but everything, all of pretty much all of Heybridge is going to be underwater in 8 years if you believe the science. 2030, I'll put a map out tomorrow, so it's going to take 15 years to build or something, but in 8 years it's going to be underwater. Crazy. They're playing Monopoly with, you know, not a ball, real land, real people's lives, you know, real nature. So, how many have we got in? We have got 60, 70 in. I don't know if you're enjoying this. I know it's a little bit boring, but that's how they want it. So, I'll keep it going, but I probably won't be doing the camera stuff because I'm not a good cameraman. I'll just put it on front view and, you know, see if anyone wants to listen to the Malden part of it. 62. Yeah, it was. I was told that I wouldn't be allowed to speak tonight, but say hello to my little friend. I was going to speak, and I did speak, and they did let me speak. And there's quite a few officers here that don't want me to. They want to put me at odds with other councillors, and surprisingly, I think this councillor's actually running a little bit better. When you put a camera on them, they have to perform a little bit. So.
Has anybody at the council actually done a check? You've got a list of trees which apparently we've agreed just have you checked against what's actually because the answer is no. Obviously, the tree surgery, everybody gets a bit of comfort from that. DDB, image trails, the regular one, Chris Nicholson. Just get chopped down. You don't need to be chopped down. The current sort of consciously run it's disgraceful. It's large birds, large trees, smaller birds, less than and you get other large birds. I think the question is, how do you enforce these measures? Does anybody, anybody, you could,
Okay, members, I think we are ready. Councillor White.
Here we go again.
Thank you, members, and welcome back to this meeting. We are now on agenda item 6, which is the land south of Wick Hill and Liferock Way on the western of Malden. It's a reserve matters application as laid out in your papers. The officer presenting is Catherine Matthews. Ms. Matthews.
Thank you. Chairman, can you all hear me? Good evening, members. So this is an application for reserve matters approval for the matters of material landscaping, layout and scale of phase 2 of the western parcel of South Malden suburb, following the more most recent outline plan submission 20/007/4. The draw members' attention to the update which has been circulated, which includes formal response from the Highway Authority, who raised no objections, and further comments from the tree officer, who's commented on the planting details proposed, and he has suggested some fairly minor alterations to position systems of trees, and the applicant has undertaken to include his comments in the proposal. So this is a plan showing where the phase 2 is, showing where phase 1 is, and where future phase 3 and the employment land would be. The aerial photo, not 100% up to date, because some of the phase 1 has been started under construction. So in terms of context, this is the south. This is the land for the outline transmission, both the red patched area and the pink patched area, and phase 2 is down here, where my cursor is. So this is the strategic master plan framework for the South Malden Garden suburb. There you go, we've got the east part on the west parcel, and phase 2 is roughly in this position here. The strategic design post forms part of the outline commission, which have been referred to numerous times in the past as part of the reserve matters applications for the various phases on both east and western parcels. They include design parameter plans, related to density, building heights, movement, connected to green infrastructure and the land use. So the eastern and western parcels have been separated since the outline plan commission, the original outline plan commission has been granted. They're separated by a tube railway line, which runs in a north-south direction. And you can see context. There's project rights of way within the site, but there's no water courses. The site accommodates hedgerows and ditches, and phase 1 is located as along the northern boundary of the site. Means of access to the site was approved as part of the outline plan commission, i.e. there's one access point from the A414, and the infrastructure for the whole of phase 2 and the wider western parcel has already been approved previously. Okay, so this reserve matters application relates to a total of 210 of the 394 dwellings, which will be divided as part of the western parcel. Site to be developed by Chris Nicholson, and Chris Nicholson is currently building out phase one. On the western parcel, then, as members know, be aware, Taylor Wimpey are currently building out the eastern parcel. The application is supported by various documents as set out in the Nicholson's report. The dwelling consists of a mixture of 2, 3, 4 and 5 bedroom houses and apartments of traditional design, and will also include the provision of affordable housing, will also be new public open space, and the usual parking provisions. The site will consist of a linear former development facing outwards on the public faces of the site, groups of buildings clustered around the cul-de-sac streets that flow off it, providing hierarchy of streets, and the layout includes swales and stud features along the boundaries of the site. The primary street will be tree lined, and 30% of the new homes will be affordable housing as required by the Outline Commission. Materials will be a mix of facing bricks and tile, building and render. And there will be a network of paths and cycleways within the site linking with the wider area. And this plan shows pedestrian movement in green, secondary vehicle access in blue, primary vehicle access purple, and cyclists in the darker green colour. And the housing mix proposed varies slightly from that set out in 1 of 6, but the mix over the western parcel as a whole will comply with the existing requirements. The density is actually less than set out in the outline transmission. So this is a wider connectivity drawing provided by access, which is phase 2 here, and the green on the path and cycleways. You've got a path and to be a right of way along the southern boundary of the site. The purple circles are proposed bus stops, and the red ones are existing bus stops. And then as you can see, the path that links into Bolton Town, and this area of land here has the resolution to approve permission for that, and it's mainly residential. So it would be into that one as well. Next slide, open space, just to give you an idea of open space, we've got quite substantial areas around the edges, and you see the tree line main road in the middle. Storey heights showing that predominantly there will be 2-storey houses, and there's a few 2.5-storey houses as green. Affordable housing is outlined in blue, and you can see that, but that's spread around sites. And some examples of some house types. I haven't put all the house types on, but just get a flavour of what they might look like, and that's 2.5-storey. And then you've got an example of the affordable house types. Got some street scenes as an example. An idea of what it might look like altogether. Another street scene, so fairly typical, traditional type style properties with traditional type exterior. Got some photos, so this is taken from the public path along the western boundary of the western parcel, so phase 2 would be in the distance here along this hedgerow, and you can see phase 1 under construction on the left hand side. And some views of phase 1 from what we call Linden roundabout, so you can see houses starting to be built around that boundary. And again, this is slightly more close look views of phase 1 and construction, again from the same place as the previous photos on the footpath on the western boundary of the parcel. Slightly further out, we've got includes the Linden home site on one side, and just for information, to photo of the Taylor Wimpey site that's being developed, and again, it's another picture of the Linden home scheme on the right here, just to give you the context within which the new proposal would sit, and to demonstrate it would be similar to. I'm just going to a quick summary. So obviously we've assessed the details submitted in relation to layout, scale, appearance and landscaping in the context of the master plan framework, the design codes and the outline commission. And it's considered the development proposed would be acceptable in terms of its character and appearance. The quality of life is advertised as dwelling. We also consider the development would be acceptable in terms of highways, parking, appropriate extended conservation, appropriate links with the existing urban area in Malden, and the educational, recreational and community facilities to be provided within the garden suburb will be provided, and the details of the recreational facilities proposed will be satisfactory. And on that basis, the application is recommended for approval, subject to a few conditions which are on the agenda papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Matthews. Now, under the public participation scheme, we have one participant for this planning application. And I'll now invite Mr. Orr, on behalf of the agent, to read out his submission. I remind you, Mr. Orr, that you are allocated 2 minutes only for public speaking in accordance with the scheme. Thank you. And that will start as soon as you begin.
Good evening, councillors, and thank you for your time this evening. My name is Barney Orr, and I'm a planner at Crest Nicholson, responsible for the delivery of this application. The scheme before you will form the second phase of development on the western parcel of South Malden Garden Suburb. The proposals are the result of extensive pre-application discussions with council officers, statutory committees, and have also benefited from member engagement. The site benefits from outline permission for 1,000 new homes, including 30% as affordable housing. The housing mix delivered across the site is bound by the planning permission and Section 106 agreement. It is our commitment to deliver a mix of homes that fully accords with these obligations. Phase 2 will deliver 210 new homes, including 62 affordable. It features an attractive tree-lined main avenue connecting from Phase 1 to the north and provides a significant area of public open space which delivers a wide range of benefits. These include elements of play space through a lap and youth play facilities and attenuation basins for drainage and biodiversity purposes. A substantial network of footpaths and cycleways are proposed throughout, with connections to the existing public right-of-way network via the eastern parcel towards the town centre and Promenade Park. Ecological enhancements include hedgehog-friendly fencing, bat and bird boxes, large areas of new tree and shrub planting, wildflower meadows, and the creation of 11 new ponds. These, alongside the new walking and cycling routes, will provide an attractive environment for new and existing residents to enjoy. We have secured an additional 10% reduction in carbon emissions beyond the requirements of building regulations. This is through the introduction of PV panels to a number of properties with orientations that ensure they operate at maximum energy efficiency. EV charging points will be provided to all dwellings with off-street parking. The site benefits from no objections by any statutory consultees and is policy compliant. We hope, in accordance with your officer's recommendation, you vote to approve the application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Orr. Okay, members, I'll now open this to debate. I see that Councillor Durham has his hand up, so I'll go to him first.
Thank you, Chairman. Just very briefly, this is another case of we are where we are, isn't it? Because this development has been given its permission. But I recall, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, maybe more than that, we were shown some very fancy graphics and artists' impressions of what
a garden suburb should look like. And we were shown that, and assured that this was going to be the acceptable face of large-scale development, which is why we agreed the 2 garden suburbs. But what I'm looking at on the screen there doesn't really bear much resemblance to those graphics that we saw that time ago. I'm obviously aware that the Linden development didn't have the features relating to a garden suburb, but I don't think we've got much choice in this, but I don't think that accords with what we were shown a dozen or 10 to 10 years ago. And that's all I'll say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Field, then Councillor Stevens, then Councillor Lagan.
Anne's been on fire tonight.
I'm basically talking about page 35, if any you want to get to that. If you look at the market housing,
miraculously, look, 50% of the market housing is 4 and 5 bedroom houses. If you then look at the affordable housing, apparently there's not going to be any old people on this estate at all. Apparently we're all going to die probably at 50 because
COVID.
the younger ones are just going to be like rabbits having kids in these 4 and 5 bedrooms. But there's not one flat or bungalow or anything for any older person. How do you call that a good mix? I'd like to see some facilities there for the elderly. See if it rolls into the new Clacton. Okay, thank you. Councillor.
She's on fire tonight, isn't she? I'll stick a camera on everyone more often.
Some clarity, please, about this affordable housing. Did I hear that they were going to look different to the others, or did I misunderstand that? Respectfully. Mr. Chairman, I was suggesting that they would not look different. They would look very similar to the market housing, which is what our policy and the design guide aims for. Thank you.
Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question and the usual comment. The first question is, I think in the officer's report, you mentioned this, Matthews, that the original housing allocation is not going to be built out this time, but over the whole of the scheme, the allocation that was promised to be delivered would actually be realised. Was I hearing that wrong, or have I phrased that wrong? Can you clarify that?
The reference to that is because, the outline permission and the 106 required a certain mix of affordable housing and market housing, but those requirements go across the western parcel as a whole, so it might be that one of the phases individually might not comply with the housing mix that the outline permission required, but the western parcel as a whole will. And that was the same approach was taken on the eastern parcel, and overall the eastern parcel does comply with the outline permission. And that perhaps goes back to Councillor Beale's question or comment earlier. So the outline permission does require at least 5% of the four-room dwellings are elderly, 1 bed elderly flats, 1% elderly bungalows, 1 bed elderly bungalows, 5% 2 bed elderly flats, and another 5% 2 bed elderly bungalows. They haven't been provided yet, but we still have phase 3. So to comply with the outline permission and the section 106 that has been signed, phase 3 will actually include all the elderly accommodation that is secured as part of the original outline plan.
Thank you very much for that. Then that causes me even more concern because things seem to move from a straight line to a curveball quite quickly. I think the developer said there was no objection to any statutory bodies, which may be fair enough, but the general public voted in a number of us a few years ago certainly objected to these massive estates. We can dress them up however we want. As Councillor Durham said, we are where we are, unfortunately. But what I'd really like to see is the honesty in some of the graphics that are put out by developers. I'd love to see, I think it was a wonderful picture of the street scene, and a couple of cars and a couple of trees, and we're skipping around there and all the pigs fed.
Parisian street
scenes.
scenes.
With the bins out, and I see all the cars parked that are going to be bought in the developments, so that we can actually see the reality of what we do, because that's the quality of life that we need to protect for our residents. So I think we need to be more realistic on actually what we are actually delivering. We can't change it, but it concerns me that we say, yes, we go along with this because on paper it looks beautiful, but the reality is often different. So that's just a concern for a long point. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, funny enough, my comments following on from Councillor Lagan, because recently in the press we've heard of there's been a couple of murders where people have been fighting over parking spaces, and also one of the last developments that was built in Mayland is awful. It's got horrible narrow roads, you can't park on them, there's forever rows and arguments over parking and cars, and bin lorries can't get through, and it's just a nightmare. What I want to know is what size are these roads? Because all these drawings, they look fine, but are they roads that you can pass 2 cars down, or are they these funny little shared ones that have got funny little bits of parking? And does every house have adequate parking spaces within the boundary of the house, so there's no need for them to park on the road? Because what I'd like to see is like the old-fashioned estates, where you had a house with a driveway for cars, then you had a path, and then you had a proper road that you could fit 2 cars down, another path, then a garden. Or is it one of these funny shared spaces that doesn't really work? So what width are they roads? Are they proper roads, or are they funny little things?
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Well, the road widths are determined by Essex County Council Highways, because they, you know, they dictate the road widths and alignments and how tight the bends can be. But in terms of the answering the question about road widths and shared roads, you can see the grey road, that will be that's the main spine road, and the brown areas there will be shared services, which would be adopted by County Council as public highways, and highways have not objected to it. So on that basis, there'll be just no grounds to object to the width of the roads that are being proposed. And in terms of parking, every house would have sufficient off-street parking to comply with the adopted standards, which are minimums these days. Perhaps, I don't know what the case in Lowland, whether that was at the time when parking requirements and maximums, and maybe if it would have been decided today, would have been approached differently. And there's also the visitor spaces provided as well, again, which comply with the minimums set out in the adopted parking standards. I think, and this goes back to Councillor Lagan's comment about, you know, being realistic about the street, what street things are going to look like. Unfortunately, you can provide in an area, but you can't always set it off. You can't force people to use it. So people, for example, would be buying some of the garage and maybe storage on the car in it. So all the plan system can do is make sure the provision is adequate, and that can't always make people use things the way they should, or the way that protects the appearance of the road or creates an environment that would ideally be the case.
Thank you. Is that a supplementary?
Yeah, it's just a supplementary. Curlew was built under the current regulations. I think we only have to have 3 car parking spaces for a 5-bedroom house, which is why it doesn't work. And what concerns me is, and I don't see why as the authority we can't change this, is those houses on the beige bits look like they're right on the road. So it's one of those where you're not going to be able to park in front of the house because you're going to block the roadway. So at best you're going to be able to stagger the cars, then you can't get the traffic through. And is there no way as an authority we can improve on this? I mean, I'm looking for the residents who are going to be living there in the future. I don't want to see fights and murders over parking. We should be beyond that. And is there any way? Because with all due respect, this is Essex County Council approved, I think it's Curlew, and that wasn't that long ago, and it was probably within 10 years. I don't think the standards have changed in 10 years, and it just does not work. So can't we do something better here? You know, we are the decision maker. Can't we improve it? I mean, you know, even if you had to make the gardens slightly smaller, as long as they make the design right, a bit more parking.
Amenity space.
The only comment I would make is that Curlew was closed was 10 years ago, and that was before our adopted parking standards. Well, at that time, there were minimum standards and maximum. So I would suggest that would be approved, possibly not approved today, because it would comply with the minimum standard that we now have. But on the basis that each property will have at least 2 off-street parking spaces, which would be the necessary dimensions. They're not just small spaces, they are the bigger spaces, which should be able to accommodate even some of the larger vehicles that people choose to drive around in. then that, I would suggest that's all this council would be able to do to, and again, we take the point, you can provide the parking, but people don't use it, or they use it for something else, then, there's very little, the planning authority can do to change.
I think your question's been answered, it's very brief.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, if you read the house sizes here, it's, the majority is 4 and 5 bedroom houses, there's some 3 bedroom. And am I right in thinking we only have 3 car parking spaces minimum for a 5 bedroom house? So if you've got 3 kids and 2 adults, that's 5 cars.
Yes, Chairman, that is correct. For any four bedroom plus is minimum of 3 spaces. But there are standards that are have been adopted and approved, and so I would suggest if that is a problem or an issue that needs addressing, then the correct procedure would be to do that through the review or a review of parking standards. Understand that it's kind of council is in the process of reviewing their parking standards at the moment. So there is an opportunity there to ask for that standard to be reviewed and not just suggest that more spaces are provided for the larger dwellings, but that's not necessarily going along with government guidance and the move towards having less vehicles, and possibly that would encourage people to have more vehicles.
I was just about to add to that point, that you know, with all due respect, Councillor, those suggestions are bucking the trend in terms of car ownership and the impact of the car on the environment. So it's highly unlikely that that's a direction of travel for development.
Okay, Councillor Fluker.
He keeps hiding his face.
Okay, so first of all, I think all these comments that have been made about sizes of gardens, car parking space, of course, they're in your local development plan, and that's what you should be looking at. It's under review at the moment. We've got the planning policy people. You should be going through that and looking at those. But obviously,
We're not on it. We're not on it.
Sorry, Chairman.
Councillor Fluker.
Chairman, you know, that's something that probably needs to be reviewed, but there are, of course, national standards and they have to be maintained as well. Chairman, I think at this time it's only right and proper that I declare an interest by virtue of the fact that next Friday, and I'm sure that Councillor Morris will be delighted when my voice said about in the past, I shall be taking delivery of my all-electric supercar.
Well done, son.
Which, Chairman, brings me on to something else. And that's what the agent, if you forgive me, I didn't quite catch your name, Mr. Orr, said about EV charging points. Now, we know what the developers do. They just put a wire into a location, secure it, so you can buy your own charging equipment. But anybody that goes to London, where there's vast swathes of Victorian neighbourhood terrace houses, will know that there's cables all across the pavements at night, plugging into cars. All this business about lamp posts and underground charging and all this sort of things a long way away. But my question is through you, Chairman, to Ms Matthews, and I know you love a random question, and I just wondered where we were.
We love a question.
You got that as well. Oh dear, I'm not going to be able to get my pun in about the carbon footprint of the car, which was the big pile of cash. But anyway, Ms Matthews, perhaps. Where are we going now with, I don't know if it'll be MPPF or if it will be general planning, but the provision of EV charging points in public areas, not in people's houses, but in public areas, because people will come, they will visit, they will, you know, and if you've only got one charging point per house, it makes sense to me that you should have EV charging points elsewhere. There are big networks. I think maybe this is something that might not be for this planning application. I'm sure Mr. Orr is listening, but it might be something to look at when we review the local development plan. I welcome an answer, but I'm not sure there is one. Thank you.
Okay,
But Chairman, if I could just finish by saying, and I know you'll be delighted to hear this because I know you'll probably be keen to move on, but bear in mind, Chairman, I noticed that your very good own town council recommends approval and that William Bolton and Hazel Lee have not responded. I would propose, Chairman, that we agree the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Are you keeping the Mercedes though, Adrian?
Councillor Morley.
It's been covered by Councillor White.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Channon next.
Thank you, Chairman. It goes back to the point actually Councillor Beale made about the housing and no elderly flats, this, that and the other. Can the officer tell us what the definition is then, bearing in mind in the context of this application? Because we do have an older person's strategy and talking about our housing, the requirements of housing stock for elderly persons. And I believe that doesn't define older persons or elderly persons by age. So I'm assuming the affordable housing that's detailed not in the capacity of elderly housing would not mean that they could not move into one of those premises, because it looks to me a bit like segregation. And I've heard that phase 3 should be the sort of arm that might deliver the older person's housing, which worries me a bit because if we're talking about equality and inclusivity and social exclusion or social inclusion, I'm just a bit concerned. We're talking possibly about older persons all being in phase 3. I don't see that an intergenerational mix. So I'm hoping by seeing those elderly four detailed areas and those above, that we're not meaning elderly persons can move into the other affordable housing, not detailed as being not elderly. And I'd just like to know how this does fit in with our older person strategy. And bearing in mind that the Northern District is going to be well on the way to over 55 population, half of it will be over 55 in the not too distant future. I'd just be interested to know that. I mean, I'm aware the MPPF does state older persons, I think, is retirement age and over and frail and etc. So I'm just interested in that segregation within this application, stating there is nothing defined as being for elderly persons in the 4 areas that are detailed within the context of the affordable housing table as shown in this report.
The 164 site, I'm just having a look at the definition of elderly persons, and it says 55 and over, and their dependents in So
That makes everyone in here ancient.
and in this case, because the affordable house, the elderly accommodation is affordable housing, it will be managed by a registered housing provider. So there would also be that protection, if you like, or no, that will be managed, that we went in there, whether they're eligible and they met the criteria. In terms of how it fits in with the strategy, I can't say because I haven't assisted in the light of that, because that issue was addressed as part of the Outline Commission, which was quite a few years ago now, and so it may not fit in with the current strategy, but basically we're stuck with that because it was agreed and signed up to a number of years ago, so we haven't got any power to require that to be changed now. Certainly any future proposals that need either another outline commission or full application would then that will not assess those proposals in light of any current statutory or guidance that the council has adopted. In terms of segregation, yes, all the elderly provision will be in phase 3, but phase 3 is right next to phase 2 and right next to phase 1, so it's not far away. So in terms of mixing, there is that mix there, they are all together, and there's some argument in having the elderly person's accommodation closer to the not in the corners here, but closer to the town and facilities in the town. So there is maybe a practical reason for doing that.
Very briefly, yes.
Yes, supplementary then. So my question is really then, on the affordable housing table, it segregates elderly and the other affordable housing. There's nothing then to prevent an older person, which you now mentioned as being over 35, of being able to
50.
There's nothing to prevent a person over 55 taking up one of those other affordable housing premises. I just want to clear, it's so segregated. I just wanted to make sure there's nothing in that because, Burnham site, if you want to give me, you know, if I mention that, the Burnham site says over 55 housing, from the villagers coming. And how, I mean, asked how we would make sure that would happen, that they've all got to go over 55, etc. So I'm just looking at that table, which Councillor Beale actually raised a very good point, which I hadn't thought of really until she asked it, and then it does seem to be that table itself is saying there's nothing for elderly, but I'm just seeking to qualification that doesn't mean the affordable housing that hasn't got that description, doesn't mean to say they could be precluded from actually taking up residence in one of those other aspects of affordable housing.
No, but the idea is that there is some specific provision for the 55 and over, which will be protected for them to make sure that the affordable housing wasn't occupied by people who were younger, and was provision specifically for the slightly elderly in the population.
Right, so the bungalows would be more or less reserved for the elderly, but they can also have the affordable. Right, okay, Councillor Durham, you had a brief point.
I just do have a brief point. I can't remember it was so long ago. I was just looking at the green spaces.
Yes.
I wonder if the officer could remind us what were the ownership and maintenance arrangements for the green spaces. And I totally take on board what Councillor White said about these off-street parking. My son lives just off Abbotsmead, and negotiating that, where actually some houses, or a lot of houses, have no off-street parking at all. It's like negotiating a obstacle course to get around the road. So this is certainly better than that.
Chairman, the public open space would be managed by a management company in the same way as the other areas of public open space, both in phase one of this parcel and the eastern parcel, and that's governed and controlled by the section 106, which is in place as part of the outline.
Quickly come back, is that for the 100-year period? I was called 100 years being mentioned at you previously. There is a time on it, I'm sure.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, we have standard 106 agreement provisions for landscape, and this will be one of those, bearing in mind the date of the application. Is a transfer of the freehold to a management company. So there's no need for a lease, a long lease or anything like that. It is a transfer of the freehold to a management company.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just a matter in terms of the electric vehicle charging. MDC is working with Essex County Council and Transport East in terms of that strategy, and all local authorities will be looking to introduce that strategy both in commercial and private properties. So that is something that MDC is working on in terms of Transport East and the other Essex authorities.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Chairman. If anyone would like to move to page 41, 5.2.6, I think that paragraph near enough really sums it up. Proposed proportion 2-bedroom units as part of the current application, 4% is what they're offering, would be significantly less than the 25-30%. And the proposed proportion of 4+ bedroom units at 50% would be significantly more than the 15 to 25% required to comply with the local housing needs assessment. However, no objection is raised to the proposed market housing mix. Why? And then it says the housing mix has been accepted at outline application stage, and so is not something that can be revisited through this reserved matters application. I mean, once again, we're getting the developers telling us what we want. It's just not good enough. We know what housing mix we need. And if I'm afraid if it's not financially viable or whatever, then don't come up with it.
Well, I don't think that forms part of this application. No. So
Yep.
look, I've got a proposal. Any other members wish to speak? Because I've got a proposal by Councillor Fluker to agree the officer's recommendation. Is that seconded?
Yes.
Councillor Helm, I saw first. Thank you, Councillor Durham, for that. Can we agree that by assent, members?
Recorded vote's just been asked.
Can I have a show of hands for those who agree? Show of hands for those who agree. And those who are against? That is carried then in that case. The next item, agenda item 7, is any other items of business that the chairman of the committee decides are urgent. I have none. Therefore, I'll move to item 8, which is for me to thank members and officers for your contributions this evening, and I will draw the meeting to a close at 21:28. Members are advised not to enter into any further discussion on this board. Please leave the meeting promptly, bearing in mind social distancing requirements. Thank you.
There you go. Sorry if it was boring. That's a planning meeting, a district planning meeting, the big planning meetings. I think I've got to record these more often because this one was a lot better than most of them usually are. I think they're a little bit aware that we've got the eyes of, well, definitely the country, maybe even the world has a little bit now. And yeah, they're performing a little bit better, it seems, because this was a better meeting than I can ever remember a district planning being. Yeah, I think they're all getting ready to leave. Sit here for a minute and just chill. Let's get rid of that light in the background though. Still get rid of that light in the background. I'll move the chair forward. Go. Get some of my buff chest.
The degree of change. If there isn't change, if that's because of the degree of resources,
Need your little friends.
That comes every time I come in, that's coming in. That's just my warning. That's me saying you will not turn my microphone off in a minute.
You were absolutely
I know. I did think about it. I just look stupid anyway. So, we're still
I got your
live, by the
glasses
way.
on, you look quite clever.
Oh well. See, I'm even dressed for the occasion.
Unlike me, it's just for
Mate, it's not about how you dress, it's about what you bring, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, you're going to actually put something on this for me, just to check when they do check these things. Who has checked the trees? Has anyone?
Motorbike tonight?
You're out of the last way.
It'd be an icicle, wouldn't it?
No, it's not. No, that's just a
If I keep wanting to do this, but I keep pulling over.
You've got levers on.
It's cold.
See you later.
See you later.
Right, I'm gonna go in. I remembered my cards ready. Can I turn that off? I turned that on when I came in. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Bye.
Sorry, we got caught up here. Look. Oh. Good night. Good night. Good night. confidential, I'll put it that way. Is this for Sue, or was that someone else who was?
No, I think it was meant for officers.
Oh, that's who's nicked my cushions, it's you.
Take care, Carl.
Yeah, there's that picture from the one I used to sit on. The chairman sits on the one I used to sit on.
See, that's how bad it's got, yeah. I'll make sure I sit here so that, you know, they don't accuse me of threatening them on the way out or anything like that, because they're just busting to try and get me on a criminal charge for something. Yeah. Thanks for watching tonight, guys. Yeah, better meeting than usual. And I'll probably be doing a Have Your Say, which is a phone-in tomorrow evening, 8 o'clock. So that's Friday evening, 8 o'clock. I'll be having a Have Your Say, and I'll be taking questions and suggestions for topics and stuff like that. The number to call is 0758 777 1617. Please call that number from 8 o'clock. And if you're not brave enough to speak, then you can text that number with a question or a topic suggestion, or text that number if you don't want to speak, and we'll do our best to get around to it. Obviously, the people that call in are going to take precedence over the people that text in, so because it's nice to speak rather than just read. So if you've got any questions, please call, or if you want to send a text to this number, the number is 0758 777 1617. Have fun, folks, and thank you for watching.